Cheap doesn't mean broken. Sometimes it means the seller wants it gone before someone asks the right question. 7 red flags, all easy to miss, all specific to how pickups get used and abused long before they hit a listing page. Start with the frame. Not the paint, not the interior. The frame, underneath, where nobody bothers to look with a flashlight. Pickups spend their lives doing things sedans never do, hauling, towing, sitting in salted winter parking lots for years of stretch. Rust Belt states in particular chew through frame rails from the inside out, and a seller who's owned the truck long enough knows exactly where the soft spots are. A quick coat of undercoating sprayed the week before listing covers it beautifully. Looks fresh. Smells faintly of tar. That smell, honestly, should make you more suspicious, not less. Independent frame inspectors, the kind body shops call in before insurance write-offs, flag this constantly. Fresh undercoating over an otherwise older, grimy frame is one of the single most reliable tells that something's being hidden. It's not proof of failure. It's proof someone didn't want you looking too closely at that exact spot. That's flag 1, and it's the cheapest one to catch. A magnet and 5 minutes under the truck will tell you more than any listing description ever will. Flag 2 lives somewhere sneakier, in the bed. Spray-in and drop-in bed liners exist for a legitimate reason. They protect against scratches, dents, the everyday wear of hauling gravel or firewood. But they also happen to be the single easiest way to hide bed rust, prior accident repair, or a bed that's been swapped entirely from a donor truck after a rear-end collision. Here's the part that surprises most buyers. Insurance total loss data shows a disproportionate share of total pickups get written off specifically because of rear-end and bed damage, not engine or cab issues. Structurally, the bed is cheaper to fix than the cab, so instead of scrapping the whole truck, a shop pulls a replacement bed off a salvage unit, bolts it on, sprays a fresh liner over the seams, and sells the truck as clean. The giveaway sits at the bolts. Factory bed bolts have a consistent, slightly weathered look across all of them. Mismatched bolt heads, fresh paint overspray around the bed rail, or a liner that stops conveniently short of the tailgate hinge. All of that points to a bed that hasn't been with this truck its whole life. 2 flags down, and the pattern's already obvious. The damage isn't gone, it's just been dressed up to survive one quick walk around. Flag 3 doesn't show up on the truck at all. It shows up on paper, and it's the one buyers skip because paperwork feels boring compared to kicking tires. A huge percentage of dirt cheap pickups on a used market didn't spend their first life with a family. They spent it with a fleet, utility companies, landscaping outfits, government motor pools, rental yards. Nothing illegal about buying one of those. Fleet trucks are often maintained on a strict schedule, which sounds like a plus. The problem is what strict fleet use actually does to a truck day to day. Constant short trips, cold starts, idling for hours with a PTO engaged, drivers who have zero ownership stake in how gently the clutch or transmission gets treated. Auction records from fleet liquidation lots tell a consistent story. Engines and transmissions from ex-fleet trucks fail earlier than private owner equivalents with similar mileage, even when service records look immaculate on paper. The maintenance was real. The abuse was also real. Both things happened to the same truck. You can usually catch this in the title history or a fleet-specific VIN lookup, and sometimes just by asking one question the seller doesn't expect. Was this ever used commercially? Watch the pause before the answer. That pause tells you more than most inspection reports. Flag 4 is where things get genuinely uncomfortable, because it's not about wear anymore, it's about honesty. Odometer fraud never fully went away. It just moved. Digital odometers are harder to physically roll back than the old mechanical ones, but they're not impossible, and pickups get targeted more often than sedans because higher mileage tanks resale value on a work truck faster than almost anything else. The National Insurance Crime Bureau still logs thousands of suspected odometer rollback cases a year, and trucks sold as is through private sellers or small independent lots make up a disproportionate share of them. The tell isn't always the number itself. It's the mismatch around the number. A steering wheel worn smooth, a driver's seat bolster collapsed and shiny, pedal rubber worn through to the metal backing. None of that lines up with a truck claiming 60,000 miles. Meanwhile, the title, when you actually pull it, sometimes shows a gap of several years between registrations with no explanation for where the truck was or who had it. None of these 4 flags so far are dramatic. No smoking wreck, no obvious lie sitting in the listing photos. That's exactly the point. And it's also exactly why the next 2 matter even more, because they involve something a lot more permanent than mileage or a repainted bed. Flag 5 is the one that scares mechanics more than rust ever does: flood history. It doesn't take a hurricane. A truck sitting in 2 feet of standing water during a bad storm season, or parked in a low floodplain during a flash flood, gets the same treatment as a coastal disaster vehicle. Quietly cleaned, quietly dried, quietly retitled somewhere that doesn't ask too many questions. Water damage in a truck's electrical system doesn't always announce itself on day 1. It shows up 8 months later as a check engine light that won't clear, a fuel gauge that lies, power windows that stutter for no reason anyone could diagnose. NCB flood title data spikes noticeably in the 12 to 18 months following any major regional flooding event, and a chunk of those vehicles never get properly branded before they cross state lines and land back on a used lot with a laundered title. The giveaway is rarely the engine. It's the small stuff, a musty smell under the carpet that air freshener can't quite mask, rust on screws that should never see moisture, a fresh headliner that doesn't match the age of everything else in the cab. Run the VIN through a national title database before you fall for the price. It takes 2 minutes, and it's the 2 minutes that separates a bargain from a nightmare. Flag 6 circles back to something almost every buyer assumes is cosmetic: oversized tires and a lift kit. Nothing wrong with wanting a truck that looks aggressive, but a lift installed cheaply by someone chasing looks rather than engineering changes the geometry of the entire suspension and steering system. And it does it in ways that quietly accelerate wear on ball joints, tie rods, and CV joints that were never designed for the new ride height. Independent suspension shops report a measurable jump in premature, where complaints tied specifically to aftermarket lifts done without matching upgraded components underneath. The trick sellers use here is simple. Big tires and a fresh lift make an older, tired truck look brand new in photos. It photographs like confidence. Underneath, sometimes, it's compensating for exactly the kind of where stock height truck couldn't hide as easily. So here's where things stand. 6 flags in, and every single one shares the same DNA. None of them lie outright. They just let a buyer's assumptions do the lying for them. A fresh coat of undercoating isn't a lie. A lift kit isn't a lie. A clean-sounding title isn't technically a lie either. But stacked together, across the same truck, they start painting a picture no seller wants spelled out loud. And the 7th flag is the one that ties every other one back together, because it's not something on the truck at all. It's a pattern in how the deal itself gets pushed forward. Flag 7 isn't mechanical at all. It's behavioral, and it's the one that shows up in almost every dirt cheap truck horror story once you go back and look for it. Urgency that doesn't match the situation. Cash only. Today, someone else is coming to look at it tonight. A price that's already suspiciously low, with pressure stacked on top to skip the inspection, skip the mechanic, skip the VIN check, skip everything that would normally slow a buyer down long enough to notice flags 1 through 6. Consumer protection complaints filed with state attorneys general show the same recurring language across thousands of used vehicle fraud cases. Sellers manufacturing false urgency, specifically to prevent due diligence from happening at all. It works because it exploits something completely human. A great price feels like it's about to disappear, and disappearing deals trigger a kind of tunnel vision that makes people skip steps they'd never skip buying literally anything else that costs this much money. A legitimate seller, one with nothing to hide, has almost no reason to panic if you ask for a day to get a pre-purchase inspection. A seller hiding a washed title or a swap bed has every reason in the world to make sure that inspection never happens. The fix is almost embarrassingly simple, and it costs less than 1 month of car payments. A pre-purchase inspection at an independent shop, run before money changes hands, catches the frame rust, the bed swap, the flood residue, the suspension wear, all of it, in under an hour for a fraction of what any single one of those problems costs to fix later. Sellers who refuse to allow one, for any reason, had just handed you the 8th red flag for free, even though this list only promised 7. Put all 7 together, and the picture gets pretty clear. Dirt cheap pickups aren't automatically bad trucks. Plenty of them are exactly what they look like. An honest owner moving on, a fair price, nothing hidden underneath. But the ones that aren't tend to hide the same handful of things, over and over, dressed up just differently enough to slip past someone in a hurry. A frame with fresh undercoating in one suspicious spot. A bed with mismatched bolts. A fleet history nobody volunteered. Mileage that doesn't match the wear. Water damage masked by air freshener. A lift kit couvrant suspension fatigue. And underneath all of it, a seller pushing you to decide before you've had time to check any of the above. Catch even 2 or 3 of these, and you've already outperformed most buyers on that lot. If this kind of breakdown actually helped, sticking around for the channel means catching the next one before it costs you a payment plan on a truck that was never worth it in the first place.